Hello, and welcome to Sup't Scoop. I am your host, Dr. Kenneth R. Hamilton, and Superintendent of the Mount Vernon City School District. The format of our show is going to be a little different moving forward this year. We've got a whole new setup, and we have a new format that we want to follow just to make our broadcast a little more interesting, a little more engaging, and more community and viewer friendly. In an effort to highlight some of the great things happening in our schools, each episode will begin with a brief news update showcasing some of the many great things happening in our school district and around our community. Our news stories are all available in greater detail on the district website, and that's www.mtvernoncsd.org. In the news today, Senator Jamal Bailey recently donated 24 school uniforms at the Edward Williams Elementary School to support students who were in need of uniforms. Bailey's donation is not the first time he's assisted the Williams School community. In early September, Bailey held a back-to-school drive where he donated 100 school backpacks filled with school supplies that were distributed in addition to school uniforms in a variety of sizes. Senator Bailey's donations assisted many of our Mount Vernon families who were really in need of help. In turn, this helps our students feel better about their classroom work and experiences. It's a win-win for everyone, and we are extremely grateful to Senator Bailey. Also in the news, October was National Fire Prevention Month, and elementary school students across the district were taught real-life skills to plan for, prevent, and survive fire-related emergencies at home and at school. The annual fire safety program is provided by the City of Mount Vernon Fire Department and utilizes group teaching and simulated emergency situations to help students learn and apply techniques that keep them and their families unharmed in an emergency situation. As part of the programs, students climbed aboard the fire department's unique teaching trailer called the Smokehouse. Its interior is designed to resemble a traditional kitchen and a small living space where firefighters deliver a talk about exercising care when around stovetops, ovens, and microwaves, as well as reinforcing the ever-important don't play with fire, matches, and lighters. The lesson also talks about what to do if you hear a smoke alarm or see smoke or fire where you are, including committing the magic number to memory, 911. One of the teaching portions of the presentation ends, an alarm sounds, and the smokehouse begins to fill with make-believe, non-toxic smoke. Students are guided to use their new skills to get below the smoke line and make their way along a plotted escape route where they can exit through a window with the help of a firefighter. With another successful Fire Safety Month in the books, we hope families in the district will take the time to discuss the lessons learned by our elementary school students and plan a course of action for their own homes. The Mount Vernon City School District's Performing Arts Magnet School was recently awarded a national grant to produce The Lion King. The Lion King Experience Grant Selection Committee selected the school from a large pool of highly qualified applicants from across the county. Receiving this grant will afford students from the Performing and Visual Arts Magnet School the opportunity to bring this iconic musical to life on their school stage. In addition to a performance license to produce The Lion King, a 60-minute adaptation created especially for the strengths and skill levels of middle school students, The Lion King Experience includes a show kit of materials to help bring the production to life and a rigorous 18-section curriculum that explores the fundamentals of theater making. The Mount Vernon Performing and Visual Arts Magnet School will perform this performance of The Lion King on January 26th through 28th at the auditorium at the Mount Vernon City High School. Tickets will be available, and that information is forthcoming. And finally, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge New York State Senator Jeff Klein. We recently held a ribbon-cutting ceremony for a new playground at Pennington Elementary School. This playground was made possible through a $170,000 grant through Senator Klein's office. And you know, after 4 years at the helm of this great school district, I am still amazed and in awe at the constant drumbeat of support we receive from our parents, community, and elected officials. Not a week goes by that I don't seem to have a conversation with one of our elected officials seeking ways to support our schools, our growth, and our transformation. Prior to joining this great city, I had never seen such unwavering commitment and support from such a diverse group of officials. To that end, I hope you will join us at the November 28th, 2017 Board of Education meeting as we will honor State Senator Jeff Klein, former Senator Ruth Hassel Thompson, and Assemblyman Gary Predlow for their tireless dedication to our schools and to our students with the presentation of the Nightlight Award. It really does take a village to raise a child, and I am proud to call this village home. Coming up, I am excited to welcome to the program our new parent liaisons. We will also have a segment devoted to the opening of our swimming pool and to talk a little bit about our homeless population with Dr. Lillian Reynolds, who is our homeless liaison for the district. We'll be right back and start the show. Thank you so much for giving us your time and attention today.
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
Hello and welcome back. Joining me now are 3 of our 8 parent liaisons who were recently hired in the district. With me today on the panel is Keziah Roberts, Sandra O'Connor, and Rita James. So welcome, ladies. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We're excited about having the parent liaisons join our team. So why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about your role and your capacity as these new parent liaisons in the district?
That's a great question. So we really focus on 3 things as parent liaisons. The first is communication with families. The second is making sure that there's a give-give relationship between teachers and parents. And what that means is making sure that families are actually communicating information to the school that trickles down to the classroom level. We know that teachers are always doing that, but making sure that there's reciprocity in that, because the parent is the child's first teacher. And then the other thing that we focus on is making sure that all of our activities are really linked to learning. So in a traditional school, activities are happening all the time. And we want to make sure that parents are walking away with things that they can actually implement at home that are going to link to the learning that's happening in the classroom.
Awesome. So Sandra, why don't you tell us, although it's only been a couple of months, why do you think this role is so important, and what are some of the initiatives you've been involved in the last few months?
Again, a great question. So we've been working really hard over the last few months. We've done extensive training, and we're learning how to communicate with our families, to open the doors to our families again. For such a long time, parents and families and caregivers have felt that, our schools are institutions and they take their student there, they drop them off, and that's it, job done. But with the research and with the teachings of Dr. Karen Mapp, we found out that the more involved our parents are with our students, the more success we see, the higher graduation levels, the higher test scorings, and it really is a team effort. We need to work together in order to see our children succeed and to help them move on to secondary and third grade education. Teachers can't do that alone. They're in the classroom from 8 to 3. We need to take that message home. We need to be involved with our children in their education, in their community, in the time we spend with them, and again, linking everything we do to learning. We can take something as simple as a trip to the grocery store and have it be a math lesson, make everything we do with our children count, make the time that we can give. Time is a challenge for all our families, and if we can link that back to learning and help educate our children in the process, that will be our goal, succeeded.
I think one of the things we're seeing on a national level is actually how do we get our parents more engaged? So it's funny that you mentioned some of the training that you've been exposed to, and I'd like you to elaborate a little bit on that in terms of how that training has helped you in your capacities as a parent liaison, and what impact do you anticipate it will have, not just on our district, but if this was expanded on a national level, what impact could it potentially have on students, families, and student outcomes?
Sure. So we did an extensive training with Karen Mapp workshop. we went through about a week and once a month, very detailed, where we dig deep. Okay, and some of the things that we learned is really all families want their kids to do well. No one goes to school saying, I'm leaving you here and that's it. So we dug deep with trying to figure out how do we help those families, and that's where workshops come in, you know, where it would lead back to Lincoln, so to learning. So if we have a family, again, it all goes back to, we can have all the potlucks we want, but everything we do, it needs to connect back to the classroom. That parent could take it back home, and it's all about communicating. All right, so parents get involved, they talk regular conversation, like you said, like driving in the car, you know, going to the market, that we are able to speak as if we are still in school, because they're always learning. And so Karen Mapp's workshop and what we learned helped us to kind of put that together and figuring how, when we do these workshops, how we can carry that over to parents for them to take it home.
So with any new initiative, there are growing pains. What are some of the challenges you've experienced in your capacity? Sandra, why don't you start us off with that one?
Well, first of all, actually, I want to start with the very positive. It's been wonderful to walk into these schools and be so welcomed by the administration, by the teachers, by the principals. Everybody wants their students to succeed, from the parent in the home life to the teachers and the principals in the classroom. So anything we can do to bridge that gap, any person that we can put in there to help alleviate the pressures on our teachers, on our administration, it's, you know, it's really not been a challenge as much as a very open, welcoming experience, and one that the parents really found a need for. They really find that they have a voice through the parent liaisons in the district, that they, you know, a lot of times parents and families or caregivers can feel intimidated by the process. And to have somebody that's actually a parent, I've been a parent in the district for over 8 years, I've been very involved with our PTAs and with our district, and to have somebody there that understands the process and that can relay their concerns back, it makes a huge difference for these parents. You know, they feel that their voice is being heard, and they then in turn can take that back to their student and help them to succeed.
Is that a unified challenge? Because I know you're all assigned to different schools. So is
Yes.
that a unified challenge?
For the most part, and I think one of the things also, parents, they want to be involved, sometimes a little challenging because they don't have the time. So one of the things that we're going to do is to be accessible to them in all times. So when we do our workshops, it won't just be in the morning, we do afternoons, or we do in the evenings, you know, so we're able to touch all those parents who are not able to come into the building all the time.
And
Yeah,
your
I'll
challenge?
just include a piece about expectations. And so a lot of times what we've seen and what I've certainly experienced is that parents expect for us to just give information. They're not necessarily expecting for us to want to have their voice included. And since, you know, your administration, that's something that's changed in the district, and people are not necessarily used to it, right? They're used to saying, I'll come out to this activity or I'll do that activity, but they're not expecting to actually have decision-making authority. And the conversations that we're having are extremely collaborative. So we've created several systems and structures for that give and take relationship to occur, and they're not necessarily used to it. So outgoing communication has stepped up tremendously. We're doing weekly outreach to parents. We have calendars that are in place. We're communicating via text message, things that are on the website, making sure it's not just a flyer that's sent home, but that parents really, through the modes of communication that they're most comfortable with, are receiving information, but then also the information they're receiving has them or gives them an opportunity to take action, gives them an opportunity to have a voice and an impact. And so parents are really impressed that, hey, I'm actually seeing what I said implemented in the classroom level. You actually asked me today, like, what things I'm working on at home that you could use in the classroom. And they're really, really impressed with that. But the challenge, since, you know, that's how you phrased it, was just they didn't expect it. And so it's new for them.
Wow, that's great. So I think one of the things that we have to work on as a community of educators, and I consider parents as part of that community of educators, and I think that's also key, because often we see these roles as being very segregated and separated, when in fact as a community, when we put the child in the center, we are all a community of educators. And one of the criticisms that we've faced previously is communication, how to get information home to parents, but also getting parents to understand their reciprocity in terms of seeking information as well, and their responsibility. Have you found it easier now to get parents to understand that we have our roles, but you have your role as parents too? One, hold us accountable, but if there's information you need, this is how you go about seeking that information. Have you been able to navigate that with some of your parents?
Yes, I've put it out there. You know, I'm in the schools in the morning screening parents, and just to let them know that I am there with any kind of questions that they might have. So it doesn't even have to be something academic necessarily. It could be something as, you know, do they have a half a day tomorrow? So that we are there for anything like that. So that they know that if there's any questions, they don't necessarily have to go through the office. So I think they do know.
Great. That's one of the things I am most excited about, quite frankly, is the potential impact this has on bridging the gap between the school and the community. And frankly, I think it's one of the pieces that we were missing in our efforts to transform, rebrand, and restore community confidence in our public schools, and that's getting the voices of our parents involved. I can't think of a greater way to do it than having folks from our community who have children in our community serving as parent liaisons, who have those already established relationships within their communities and within their schools. And I can't thank you enough for the tremendous work you've done already. I can only imagine when we look back at the end of our first year and say, this is the progress that we've made, and this is some of the impact that your roles have had on our district as we roll forward with this family and community engagement initiative. So thank you so much for being with us today. I look forward to hearing more about what you're doing throughout the course of the school year. We'll be right back, and we'll have an update on our swimming pool by our aquatics director, Alfredo Giuliano. We'll be right back.
Me and my boy Matt had it good. He had catnip that was off the hook. But one day, he brings a girl home, and she's allergic to cats. Every sneeze was a nail in my coffin. Now I'm in a shelter. It's decent, but they don't even have Wi-Fi.
Hello and welcome back to Sup't Scoop. Joining me now is our aquatics director, Alfredo Giuliano, who is our new aquatics director for the swimming pool that will be opening here at Mount Vernon High School. As you know, this swimming pool has been one of my pet projects since arriving in the district, and it has been 3 years in the making, and we are now ready to launch the opening of the new swimming pool here at Mount Vernon High School. So, Alfredo, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, you've been on the show before.
Yes.
We actually had a tour of the pool while it was under construction. Give us an update on what the status of the swimming pool is today.
Well, currently right now, they have ripped out the entire inside of the pool, which was a little frightening at first to see. But now they have all the concrete in for the floor and on the walls. And it is supposed to be monolithic, so it's supposed to be like a bathtub. So that should stop a lot of the leaking and any kind of water loss that a normal swimming pool should have.
So we've had some challenges because the pool was empty for so long.
Correct.
And had fallen into such disrepair that our initial expectations about the repair actually got exacerbated by uncovering some things that were structurally inappropriate and some new regulations that we had to meet.
Correct.
One of the great things about having you on board is that you're up to date on what these new regulations are and you're well versed on what the expectations are. So now that this pool is in its final stages, what can we anticipate in terms of a swimming program?
Well, one of the first things that we want to do is definitely make sure that we have a basic learn to swim program for our physics classes. We want to try to get as many of the students as possible to get the experience of being in the water. Most of the people in our district just haven't gone to swimming pools, and part of the reason is they're afraid to swim or just don't know how to swim. So that's one of our main our main points that we want to do right away. One of the next stages is setting up lifeguarding programs as part of PE classes so that we can start teaching a lot of our swimmers now, giving them a trade. We've been working out deals with country clubs and Westchester Parks and Recreation to put those new lifeguards now into jobs.
Well, I tell you, I can't thank Assemblyman Pretlow enough for really giving us the funds to get this program started. And one of the things that he has been particularly concerned about is creating opportunities through this pool so that our youngsters can be gainfully employed by becoming certified lifeguards. Correct. What will that lifeguard training look like, and how many students do you think will really benefit from being able to be employable once they get certified as lifeguards?
Well, for example, the Parks and Rec Department typically needs about 150 to 180 lifeguards a year to adequately staff their parks. So, you know, there's a great opportunity for a lot of the students in Mount Vernon to come in, learn how to swim, take a lifeguarding class, and go out there and be gainfully employed. There are other places in the area, whether they're country clubs or private community pools, things of that such, that are constantly looking for lifeguards. I know during the summer, it's very, very important to have high school lifeguards because all of your college lifeguards go away back to school. So, you know, I'm looking to have very, very big lifeguarding classes and put it out to the community to really start teaching some of these guys how to swim and then get a job.
So there's an issue. As you know, I have a student focus group, and you know, the subject came up a couple of times, but it really started getting some momentum, and I think it is significantly has the potential to be a significant barrier. A lot of our girls are talking about, I don't want to swim because I don't want to mess up my hair.
Correct.
And I think that is really something that we have to do to remove that barrier so that we don't have our girls being very concerned about missing this opportunity because they don't want to mess up their hair. What can you offer as a solution to that barrier so that our young ladies really see that this is something that they can manage and endure and maintain the beauty of the cost of maintaining their hair?
Right. Well, the first thing is education. Just educating our young ladies that it's okay to get in the water, that your hair won't be ruined. It's about taking care of yourself afterwards. So the first thing I would do is teach them, you put a hair wrap on, and then you put your swim cap on. This is going to keep most of the moisture out of their hair. And even when they submerge underwater, yes, their hair will get a little wet, but it won't be so wet that anything that they've done to their hair is totally ruined. But then also making sure that you wash the chlorine out of your hair. You know, taking care of it afterwards is 90% of the battle. They make good shampoos and conditioners for chlorine. I have a couple of young ladies on my USA team now that swim 5 days a week for 2 hours every single day, and this is part of their management. These are just some of the things that they have to do. So taking a class once or twice a week during their swim session, or even if we go 3 weeks straight, you know, shouldn't really be too much of a problem if they're in the water for about a half an hour.
Well, I think that's some information we definitely need to make sure that we're sharing with our girls when you go around and you do your recruitment. So one of our goals with opening this pool was trying to create an opportunity for the pool to be self-sustaining, because maintaining swimming pools are very expensive, which is one of the reasons the pool was closed for over a decade. What are some of your plans to generate revenue so that the pool can be self-sustaining?
Well, it's all about programming. One of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to put together a Learn to Swim program, an affordable one for the Mount Vernon district. Also an affordable swim team, USA swim team, that will come in and rent the pool for the majority of the time. If we can have those things happening at the pool, there will be ready-made income coming in so that it will take care of the water bill, the electricity bill, the chlorine, things like that. Then also too, bringing in some other fun programs, scuba diving. I'm sure that hardly anybody, if anybody, in Mount Vernon has ever thought that they might be a scuba diver. So to bring in instructors to do things like that, to try to bring Olympians to Mount Vernon to show everyone that, hey, you can swim in any place as long as you have a body of water to do it. There have been new fitness programs for the water that have been absolutely amazing. Border yoga, from the way I understand it, has been really taking off, where you tether a board to the lane lines, and now you have to balance on the board and hold these poses and things like that. So there are a ton of programs out there. We just have to create them, we have to advertise for them, and then we have to run a solid program. That's what it really comes down to. Nobody wants to go to a program that is subpar, and we don't plan to have any programs out of this pool that are subpar.
Well, we certainly have plans to expand the rehabilitation of the pool to include rehabbing the lockers and adding additional seating space for spectators to come to events, so that this really becomes a shining example of Mount Vernon. Your work is certainly cut out for you. You've had some time to plan, so we're really looking forward to what this program is going to look like. So we anticipate that the opening of the swimming pool will be in the next 30 days. So please stay tuned for the ribbon cutting ceremony and be able to capture the students who take the first dive into the Mount Vernon High School swimming pool for the first time in over 10 years. And a special thanks again to Assemblyman Gary Pretlow. So we'll be right back. And the next segment of our show, we'll be talking to Lillian Reynolds, who is our homeless liaison. She is the person who coordinates services for our nearly 900 students in our district who are homeless. So stay tuned, we'll be right back. And thank you, Alfredo, for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
They said I have troll teeth.
That my voice sounded like a possessed baby doll.
That no one would ever love someone as stupid as me.
That I was fat, ugly.
Disgusting.
The effect of bullying is potent.
We will no longer be the silent majority.
Now, when you see online bullying, there's something you can do about it.
We're gonna take action with the I.
I am a witness. I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness, and so are you.
Welcome back. I'm so happy to have our Dr. Lillian Reynolds with us, who serves as the homeless liaison for the district. We have approximately 10% of our student population who are classified as homeless. And Dr. Reynolds' job is to be the liaison and the coordinator for services that are delivered specifically to this population. So welcome to the show, Dr. Reynolds.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hamilton.
So why don't you talk to us a little bit about what your services entail and how your position is vital to the population of people who often are almost forgotten because they blend in so well.
Yes. Well, my position is one of student services. I work from the student services office, although my office is not located there. And my job is to identify the students that do not have a permanent place to live, but may be bouncing around from family, relatives, or maybe shelters. And after I meet them, I assess their needs. Whatever there is that is a barrier to them receiving an education, I work to remove that barrier so that they can receive a quality education.
So what are some of those barriers? I think that's a very good point. What are some of the barriers that we may not have on our radar, but when students are homeless and or have a disability and or socioeconomically disadvantaged, how do those barriers manifest themselves in terms of the delivery of services and student readiness?
Well, first, the first barrier to most homeless students is transportation. Some students, if they get moved because of their home being, they've been put out of their home for whatever reason, or they lost their housing, maybe where they currently live is too far from their school of origin. And the McKinney-Vento law allows for the students to be transported to their school of origin. So we make sure that transportation is arranged for those students. But there are other barriers that most of us don't think about, like you said. such as if you move in with family, friends, and relatives, there may be only one bathroom. So if you only have one bathroom and you have 10 people in the house to get ready at the same time, maybe they don't have enough bathroom time, they may not have the clothing that they need to have, may not have hot water, they may not have electricity. So there are those barriers as well that I try to assist families to connect with services from the community, or people in the community help to provide clothing and towels and the things that those students may need.
So what's in your arsenal in terms of getting these supplies and materials to these families? Like, what do you have in your bag of tricks that serve as additional resources for this very special population?
So what the homeless program has been able to do is collaborate with community organizations, churches, and individuals. And we provide backpacks, school supplies, clothing. Now we're doing uniforms because uniforms is required for elementary and middle schoolers. We provide coats, hats, gloves, and boots. We provide bus passes that the school district provides, and we also provide bus service, which is like a yellow school bus for the students that require it.
Amazing. And what about social services? I would imagine that many of our youngsters, in addition to those basic needs as it relates to just daily living and functioning, that there are some social services that needs to be in place to help reunite our families into permanent residency.
Absolutely. So the Department of Social Services is the first point of entry for a family who has lost their home, maybe because of fire or they've been evicted. And what the Social Services Department does is they place the families in a shelter first, and then they move from shelter to transitional housing units or emergency housing units, and then they help the family to be able to secure their own housing again with Shelter Plus or Shelter Help services that helps to pay the rent for them in an apartment or a transitional home that a community housing agency may provide.
So 10% of our population is unusually high. In comparison to other places that I've worked, other communities, 10% seems to be a pretty extraordinary number. Even when I talk to some of my colleagues in surrounding communities, their homeless population is nowhere near what ours is. Why do you think it's so high in our community?
Well, studies have been done in Westchester County that show that a lot of the homeless families, people who are poor and unable to afford housing, are placed in Mount Vernon, Yonkers, and also New Rochelle. We don't know why that is. As a matter of fact, there are some housing agencies that are trying to change that so that certain communities are not overly inundated with this homeless population and people of great need. But so far, this is where they land. We have shelters here. We have EHUs, which are emergency housing units, and transitional housing. Right now, our transitional housing and EHUs are run by Community Housing Innovations, and so they provide these spaces. In other communities, it may be West Hab housing, and we also still have a West Hab building in Mount Vernon. So it's been a disproportionate way that they have distributed those in need in the county, and it's a known fact. And hopefully those things will change so that it won't be such an imbalance with who cares for the needy among us.
So I know as a licensed social worker, your caseload is unusually high.
Yes.
And one of the things that we have been talking about is how we can provide additional support to you and your offices so that, one, the services are more consistent, and two, that in those emergency situations, because I know I get a call over the weekend of a family being burned out, particularly in the winter months.
Yes.
You're the first person that I call and say, hey, Lillian, we need to get you on the spot. So we're looking to provide some additional services and support so that you can be more effective and efficient in the delivery of your services. What can the community do? If you had an opportunity to make a plea to the community to support your office and the services that are so vital to the population that you're responsible for serving, what would that message be and what would those resources look like?
Well, in speaking to the community, I want to first say thank you to the community, because this community has been phenomenal in terms of providing coats, hats, gloves, boots, clothing, and other items that they know the homeless families need. Churches have been phenomenal in this community. We provide the prom project and graduation expenses, but I think that maybe we should really consider that we could do more. because the numbers are so high, because the need is so great, that if we think about the homeless during the holidays, just remember there are people out there who won't get what your children get.
Right.
And those children, these children that I serve, they really want the same thing that your children want. It may be difficult to do that, but to think more about how you can care for those children who don't have the same thing that your children have. But also to remember them when the holiday is not in session. So when it turns from winter to spring, children need spring clothing. And just the same thing your child would need, they would need it as well. So just be more mindful of that. But I want to thank the churches and community organizations, the Red Cross, because when you call me, I call them. Or sometimes they call me up and say, hey, I think this is one of your students, so that we can get right on top of getting them what they need so that their school services will not be interrupted.
So we have our annual holiday event
yes.
this year, which will be held on December 9th. And one of the things that I really want to accomplish this year is to support those families who have been impacted during this hurricane season, unprecedented hurricane season. And we've inherited a lot of students who have been displaced as a result of that. So I want to plead to our community to come out and support our holiday event on December 9th. We're asking for coats and gloves and things that, like you said, kids in any other normal situation would want and expect for the Christmas, but it's more than a want for these kids, it's more of a need.
Absolutely.
How can people reach you? Why don't you tell that camera very specifically how they can reach you and what you need?
The way you can reach me is by my office number, 914-665-7597. And also by email, lreynolds@mountvernoncsd.org. And I'd be happy to hear from you and happy to work with you as we work together to provide the needs of our homeless students. Thank you.
I can't thank you enough for your service to this district and this community. You have been a champion since I have been here with advocating for these students, many of whom are voiceless.
Yes.
And your services are definitely, definitely appreciated. So thank you so much for joining us on Sup't Scoop. That's all the time we have today. We'll see you next time on Sup't Scoop. We're looking forward to a great school year, an awesome season of Sup't Scoop, and we have some great shows planned ahead for you in the near future. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Sup't Scoop.